I'm here this morning with Sergeant Brian Johnson. He's going to talk to us about the Battle of Dieppe. Take it away, Mr. Johnson.
Alright, well, it all started about 4:50 in the morning on August 19th, 1942. We were just beginning to storm the beaches of Dieppe. It was the first few thousand men to storm the German stronghold. We got mowed down by artillery fire on the cliff. I was one of the last to get off the landing craft, which is probably the reason I survived, as the artillery was still reloading from the first wave.
So I guess this is it.
I guess so. Want to smoke?
Ow, my ass.
As I ran off the truck, body getting shaken by artillery fire, I ran for the nearest cover I could find, which happened to be a rock the size of an industrial oven. I sat there for at least 5 minutes out of sheer fright, until I saw the rest of my squad mates making a run for it, so I tried to meet up with them, although half of them got mowed down by machine guns in the bunkers. By the time the remaining troops made it into town, the vast majority of our forces had been killed. Although I survived and made it into town, I guess my luck had ran out. We were outnumbered 3-1 and were forced into German capture. In my opinion, this was worse than dying, as the torture we were put through for those 18 days in the prisoner of war camps were horrible.
What are your plans going into Dieppe? What are your plans going into Dieppe?
Never tell you anything, you Nazi!
What are your plans?
I'll never tell you anything.
I'm gonna ask you one more time.
Oh, I'm so glad to see you. A few more seconds, they would have killed me.
Oh, we never leave a man behind. I'm here today with Hung Lo, and he's going to talk to us about his experiences in the Japanese internment camps during World War II. Take it away, Mr. Lo.
Thank you. Well, it all started in 1942. Prime Minister Mackenzie King had ordered all of us Japanese Canadians into what he called protective custody. On February 24th, the RCMP started to knock on our doors and remove us from our homes. They promised us that all of our belongings would be returned after everything was over, but that never happened. They took us to these places called internment camps in British Columbia, where the living conditions weren't up to date at all. We weren't treated as bad as they were in Jewish concentration camps. We were put to work and made to do cheap labor. The tent-like structures we lived in were very primitive as well, and for the longest time we had no electricity and no running water. The winters were cold and the summers were hot. I couldn't wait to get back home. The only thing I could describe it as was hell on earth. They told us to go to these places for our own protection, but I think I had to do with the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor in the U.S., which I don't think is fair since I was born in Canada and I deserve every right to live at home and be treated equal as anyone else. We finally got let out of these camps in 1945 and decided to move to Toronto and not go back to my home in BC. It was a tough decision, but since we never got our belongings back anyways, I decided to get a fresh start in a new place. Although the government did pay reparations 40 years later, $20,000 isn't nearly enough to take away the painful memories of being torn away from family and forced into camps by our own government. Hi, I'm here today with Mr. Heinz Goldberg, and Heinz, you are a survivor of the Holocaust, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, that's an amazing feat to have been through all that and lived to tell about it. Care to share with us that story?
Well, it's always been tough for me to talk about, but I've been getting better and I'd like to share my story with you. Now, life in Germany was tough since we were still going through the effects of post-World War I, paying war reparations and whatnot. So when Hitler came into the political scene, everybody was thankful for the leader that could bring us to a state of prosperity. When he finally came into power, he instated the Nuremberg Laws, which basically classified us as Jews and pretty much took away all of our civil rights. They would eventually call this the stage of classification. Next came the stage of isolation, where they pretty much banned us from going to any place owned by non-Jewish Germans, and forced us to go into Jewish-owned shops and other faculties. They pretty much forced us into our own society, included from everyone else. Then they started to take us out of our homes. They put us in these small, cramped ghettos where we would share rooms with a number of other Jewish families, called ghettoization. The next step in Hitler's plan was the transfer stage, where they rounded up all the Jewish people in the ghettos and put us into the train cars and other vehicles and moved us to different camps. They pretty much forced us into our own society, excluded from everyone else. Then they started to take us out of our homes. They put us into these small, cramped ghettos, where we would share rooms with a number of other Jewish families. This was called ghettoization. The next step in Hitler's plan was the transfer stage, where they rounded up all the Jewish people in the ghettos and put us into train carts and other vehicles and moved us into different camps. That brings me to the next stage, concentration, during which they put us in concentration camps, where we were forced to work with minimal food, water, and guards that would beat us if we did anything wrong, or even if they just felt like it for no reason. Then came the final and most devastating step, extermination. This is when they put large numbers of Jews at once in these large showers, which were actually just chambers with a bunch of shower heads that shot out poisonous gas to kill us. I was fortunate enough to not have made it into these chambers. As the war had ended, the camps liberated, before Hitler's plans could be completed and all the Jews killed. Although I survived, it is now estimated that Hitler still managed to kill 60% of the European Jew population.
Alright, now I'm here with Miss Nancy Grace. Now, Miss Grace, you were a woman on the home front during the Great War.
Yes, I was.
Tell me what it was like to be a woman on the home front at that time.
I used to work in a munitions factory during the Great War. The hours were long and hard, but it felt good to take on new responsibilities. And it was also very good to know that I was supporting the war effort and keeping my husband safe. The new responsibilities that I had to take on during this time, I think, really paved the way for women during the time, but because it gave us new roles that we had to fill now that the men weren't home. The hardest part of all of this, I believe, was the rationing. All of the great meals that I couldn't provide, or that I had provided for my family, during the pre-war period, I just couldn't do it anymore, because all the grain and meats that I was so used to buying at the market weren't available for sale anymore, because they were all going to the soldiers at the home front to keep them fed. I was always encouraging my friends and families to save up scraps, like bones, metals, rags, and old pieces of tattered clothing that to support the soldiers and whatnot. All in all, though, I believe the sacrifices we made were good, because it paved the way for women of the future. Canada recognized us as more than just housewives. We were citizens.
Thank you very much.
And that's a
Mrs.
wrap.
Gray.